Rebellious Studio presents the Mind Body Podcast with your host, Maria Angelova. Hi, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. It is with an absolute pleasure that I welcome today here with me my friend, my colleague, Isaac Emmanuel. How are you doing, Isaac, today?
Yay! Nice intro. Thank you, Maria. I'm excited to be here, and it's been a pleasure meeting with you and working with you to this point, and excited to see what comes next. So let's do it.
Vice versa. All right, Isaac, before we dive into the juicy part, let's start with getting the audience to know who you are. So give us 3 words that describe who Isaac is and give us a little bit of a backstory behind each word.
Okay, so I think the words that I told you are passionate, instinctual, and few things done well. And what I mean by those are, and this will probably make sense with my story, but I don't derive inspiration from like money or prestige. These are not things that inspire me. You know, if I'm going to enjoy work that I do, I have to be passionate about it, which leads to, you know, a lot of what ended up happening with me. And when I am interested in something, I put my whole heart and soul into it. I don't know how to do things halfway, which, relates to my third thing, few things done well. I am not good at doing many things at once, I'm not a multitasker. I choose several things that I can commit myself completely to at a time. Some people, they get excited by having 20 things in front of them. It overwhelms me. I would prefer to choose 3 or 4 and do an exceptional job at those. That's what I have learned that works for me and my particular personality. And then instinctual, meaning that in relation to being rebellious, I have never been able to live a life where it's like wake up at 7 and go to sleep at 10 and follow this very rigid discipline. My heart has always told me I should, if I'm really going to excel at life, I should follow my instincts, trust fundamentally what makes sense and works for my heart. And so, my ideal life is, projects that allow me to do them how I want and manage the way that I want to do them and work on instinct primarily. I respect very much discipline and the people that are good at it, but I am more on the other side.
It's very interesting because I'll tell you, I like structure. I do like discipline. Probably part of it is because I grew up in a very disciplined culture. In communism, it was very strict.
Sure.
I joke that it was almost military-like discipline. And I do think there are benefits. For me, discipline is serving me well, and like having a specific routine is serving me well. But I can relate to what you're talking about, the intuition and listening to intuition and what makes you happy and being passionate about it, which is where I think actually you and I kind of crossroads and connected on that topic.
Yeah.
So let's dive right there. Like, tell us about the rebellious move that you did, Isaac.
Okay, so I'm 35 years old and I'm already in my second career is the basic idea of it. I was born and raised in New Mexico, and sort of very, traditional upbringing in a lot of ways, except that my parents were both involved in a sort of unique religious spiritual organization that teaches that each religion of the world is part of a greater truth and part of the whole, and all must be understood to understand the whole picture. And so that was a very unique perspective that informed a lot of my life. But I mostly went towards what I was good at. And so I seemed to have some talent for analysis and thinking and speaking. So I ended up in economics in undergrad and business in undergrad. And for grad school, I went for business and law, and ended up becoming an attorney. And, some of that was the nonprofit spiritual organization that we were involved in needed that assistance. And so it seemed like a good fit for me, but it also seemed like a decent career. I had spent my whole life writing, reading, speaking, and analyzing, just, from philosophy to debate in high school. I did newspaper in high school. I did rap. I tried to be a hip hop rapper for a while when I was in college. I participated in rap battles in Boston. I was never like good, but it was fun. But it all related to sort of these writing, reading, speaking, analyzing. So why, lawyer, perfect, makes total sense. So I went for it, and I did very well in law school. And everyone had high hopes and expectations for my illustrious future law career. But I finally got out and started practicing, and I didn't know what was happening. I just, I did my day in and day out. There was the initial rush of, oh, this is a new career. I'm excited. I have to learn all these things. Oh, meeting clients. Oh, here's a tax question. Here's a business question. Here's a family law question. Here's a criminal question. How interesting. Let's analyze these things. There were some enjoyable parts of it, but little by little, I started losing my sense of self and my heart, kind of. And I didn't know it at the time, it was my first time out of school. I didn't know what I was supposed to expect, but I didn't know why, I wasn't exercising as much as before. And I wasn't passionate about the things that I used to be passionate about. And it just seemed like, a pointless, and the fundamental problem was that I don't think I believe in the legal system, fundamentally. There are a lot of problems with the legal system. And I felt like if I really dedicated myself to this, I'd become part of the problem. So I tried to find a corner of the industry where I wouldn't affect too much. So I ended up becoming this tax appellate attorney where, the question was is this a lease or a license? Should this be taxed or not? You don't cause major social or moral change in this area. It sort of was but my heart, it was well, okay, I found a place where I don't hurt people, but I'm not doing any I'm not really helping, and it's not passionate to me. I enjoy the intellectual aspect, but beyond that, so I was getting depressed, and I didn't realize it. Over the course of this 5 years, go ahead, Maria.
So one thing I think something very important that you mentioned is so relevant to our society today, and that's something that I talk about a lot, is getting onto that hamster wheel, which you kind of alluded to, where you said, I lost interest into things that I enjoy. I didn't work out. I didn't take care of myself. I was not feeling as well, but I still kept going for a period of time. Luckily for you, not a long period of time. And I think that is something so important, that we just get onto this train, on this snowball that just keeps going, and we don't really pause and think, am I happy?
Totally.
What is bringing me? What's my satisfaction in life? Okay, I have a great salary, a great title, a prestigious job, whatever your thing is, but ultimately, am I happy?
Right. And it's a trap of they call throwing bad money after good money, or where you get attached. I spent 5 years of my life and quite a decent bit of money obtaining a business degree and a law degree. And I spent 6 months of my life literally in a room studying for the bar exam and doing pretty much nothing else. It is not an easy thing to ever just walk away from all of that effort and expectation that this is really going to be that was all worth it. And it is. I still don't regret doing that, but still, it never occurred to me in my mind that that's not what I would do for the rest of my life, right? For quite a few, for the first 3 or 4, really 5 years that I was practicing, it never even questioned. It was just I was expecting at one point it would get better. And I started trying to make changes in my life to see if I could fix the problem. So about 2.5 years into my practice, I decided the problem is working under somebody else. Again, as I said, instinctual. I like to be able to control my own schedule and choose how and when I work. So I said, I'm going to go solo. So I left my practice, the place that I had worked, and I started my own law firm. And for 6 months, it was beautiful because I was building the business. I was designing my logo and setting up my systems, choosing my practice management software, figuring out all the details of how I wanted to practice, and all the systems that I was designing. I was on fire. I met my wife around this time, and she can tell you she didn't see me for a couple months, and she was not happy about it. But I was so excited about doing all of these parts of practice. And I was like, okay, I figured it out. This is what I need. And then the business got set up and I went back to practicing, and it all kind of came right back to where it was before. So that was not the solution. I thought it would be, but it wasn't. And so finally, after really 4 or 5 years, and my wife and I had gotten married at this point, and we were living together. And one day she just sort of talked to me and told me hey, like, you haven't been admitting this to yourself, but I'm going to tell you, you don't like being a lawyer. You just don't. The only time that we have been together that I have seen you truly happy is when you were building that business, when you were doing the business side, not when you were practicing. You have never enjoyed this practice. And, she's my wife. So that's the reason I married her. I respect her opinion. So I had to sort of take a step back and think and be like, is she right? Have I not been paying attention to the fundamental problem here? And at the same time, she's a very wonderful, supportive woman. She was like, I also have entrepreneurial dreams. And I also don't feel like I want to just work in a normal 9 to 5. Why don't we do something crazy? Let's jump with both feet into, a better idea. We can take on debt, live on credit cards for a while, move back in with parents if we have to, make whatever sacrifices we need, and accept the struggle and the difficulty that will take. But let's jump for a change. And she was like, I'll support you in that. I'm with you in that. And you can get trapped. Like, it's not just your own approach. Sometimes it can also be you spend $100,000 to get a law degree and you're in debt. Like, even if you hate it, you can't leave. You're stuck in the cycle forever. But her and I were fortunate enough to have the ability to, once we recognized the problem, to jump for something. We had the family support. We were blessed enough to, I hustled really hard in law school to graduate with little or no debt. And all of these things. But there are many people that I really feel for, that maybe they know it, but they can't get out, right? And it takes a long time for them to get past that whole aspect. But we decided over those next 3-6 months, we made the decision. And yeah, I quit my job. I closed my law firm. We moved back in with my parents for a while, and then we ended up, through a lot of different reasons, sort of realizing there were opportunities here in Georgia with her career. She's a doctor, a naturopathic doctor, and her father-in-law, or my father-in-law, her father, who is also a doctor, and there were some opportunities here in healthcare. And we moved here, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Here you are. Yeah.
What's up?
I said, and here you are.
And here I am. Yeah, here I am. That's right. So
and what would you say is the experience of your daily life doing something that you enjoy? Because I can very much relate to your story. And, one thing I tell people is, my story was a little bit different because I didn't really have, my husband was not very supportive of me quitting my job.
Mm-hmm.
So it was uncomfortable financially. I mean, I did have savings that I knew, I will tell you, they went a lot faster than I thought they would.
Totally.
And it was uncomfortable. And I always tell people, if you want to, you can find a way. I'm not saying it's going to be comfortable or easy, but if you want to, you can make a change. Mm-hmm. And that is why I love sharing stories such as yours, because you spend all that time, all that money, financial investment, and here you are. Now you're doing something that you love. Yeah. And it's doable. It's possible.
It is. Every person has their own talents and problems, right? It's going to be easy. Each part is going to be easier for some people and harder for some people. The part that was hard for me was figuring out, where do I fit? How do I, where do I move into, how do I work a normal 9-to-5 job and just exist in that sort of routine, sort of the practical aspects. But for some reason, I have never had a problem sort of, once I've made a decision, jumping with both feet sort of fearlessly into that. I take my time to make a decision, but once I'm there, I go, and thank God for that. That's a, nice piece of my brain. But I know that for many other people, it's the opposite, right? They have no, they can keep working that job and they can figure out all the practical details, no problem. But it's that fear, that fear of the unknown, or that question of, will I make it? Will I fail? That holds them back. And so, I don't know, I even talked to other attorneys. There are a lot of people that were my colleagues that they're I also don't like it, but they're
doing it.
They're still doing it, right? And so
I think that's what holds people back, the fear of the unknown. I am leaping into what? I don't know what's there. I don't know how I'm going to make it work. I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. What about my benefits and pension? There are no more pensions, but right? All of those things that give us that false sense of safety that we are conditioned to.
Yeah. Yeah.
and they keep us stuck. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think the first big step is to commit to it, like you said, and just jump.
Yeah.
And what I have found is that when you know what you want, and when you just say, that's where I want to go, the steps will show up, the
Mm,
clarity will come,
mm,
but you got to give yourself that chance, and to also not be emotionally shaken up by the whole thing, to trust, to be collected, which is where, to me, self-care, that's where it comes. This has to be quiet, right? It can be rumbling around into a panic, overwhelm mode of what
yeah.
do I do?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's easy to talk about it after the fact, like it was all great, but I was a mess for quite some time, right? Self-care or not, I did my best, but despite my, okay, I've done this, there was still a lot of emotional turmoil and, oh God, tension with, all the new, and it is hard. Of course it's hard.
Well, I mean, I will tell you, like, it was the same, it was a difficult stage of my life as well. But what it pushed me to is it pushed me to grow, and it
Yeah.
pushed me to, I mean, really uncover this life that I didn't even really know existed out there. I just thought that's what you do. You become an adult, you get a job, you do the 9 to 5, and you just repeat. And that's kind of like the end of it.
Right.
And
Right. Totally.
once you go through the growth stage and you let go of the fear, I mean, is it always smooth? It's not always a
Oh,
smooth
it's
sailing.
never smooth. I don't think it's ever smooth. If it's smooth, it's not hard, right? And then you're not growing, just like you said. And also, it's amazing how lessons you learn in different parts of life come to apply in completely different areas. Like, I'm sure you understand this very well in Pilates, but so my background in movement, as I've told you about, that I didn't really do much exercise or movement until I was in my 20s, but then I got really deeply involved in martial arts and parkour and like fundamentals of just motion of the body and all of this. I got really obsessed. Talk about passion. That's my secret passion. If I can ever achieve what I want to in that area, I will be so happy. But but one of the things that I learned from martial arts was, when you are executing a technique on a partner or on an opponent, you can take as long as you want, to decide if you're going to do it, and you want to wait for that right moment. But once you've decided you're going to execute the technique, you have to commit 100% with your entire body, mind, and soul. Because if you don't, that's the only way you guarantee that it won't work. Like if you leave your foot behind or your core behind or a piece of your arm behind and you do not entirely put yourself into making that happen, then you will fail. So your only chance of success is 100% commitment. And that was a lesson that has helped me in far more areas than just martial arts, right? It is applied to every aspect of my life. And it's one of those little things that, you learned it in movement, but it applies everywhere. Yeah. So,
You know what? I say, you hear me all the time, that what we apply on the mat or on the reformer is exactly just life. And I love that analogy. You have to commit, you have to jump. And
yeah.
what a lot of times we do is we're wishy-washy. I want this, but it's not safe. And I want this, but what about this? And then we're kind of going around the edge and we're stuck.
Yep, absolutely. And probably you end up worse on both sides, than but it's natural, it's natural, it's inevitable probably to some extent, but yeah.
Yeah. So Isaac, you have done this tremendous journey. You're now on the other side and you're like, what do I do next? So what do you do now? And tell us about the experience that you're going through. How does it feel doing something that you enjoy? I mean, you guys are really kind of running an amazing family business because you have all of the aspects coming together.
Yeah,
Fascinated when I met the whole family.
it's been very interesting. Yeah. So talking to your point of if you commit, then the steps will follow. I'll tell you a story just about that, but I'll also say that the steps that come are probably not the ones you expected, right? You have to be flexible in terms of jumping on the opportunities that do come instead of what you thought was going to happen, right? So
100%.
So when Bhavna and I, my wife Bhavna, when we decided to do this, our thought was, I have an entrepreneurial, like I like doing sort of small business entrepreneurs type stuff. She has a similar approach and she has a lot of good ideas. Let's put our heads together and start some businesses. So, she is kind of a herbalist, apothecarian, along with her medical training. She makes like lip balms and all sorts of different products. And our first thought was, let's build sort of a products-based business where I can help implement the business side and she puts the product knowledge in, right? And then we also had some ideas for online courses and sort of social media development. She's very good at all that stuff. I'm not so much, but we had all of these ideas. This was going to be our initial plan. Instead, instead of all that, when we visited, so at some point of all this, we visited her parents here in Georgia. And while we were here, we started talking about sort of Dr. Singh's current medical practice. So her father, Dr. Singh, Dr. Rajendra Singh, has been a primary care physician in a sort of a traditional primary care model for the past 36 years. And it turns out that really for the past almost decade, he has been thinking about moving to a different style of practice, a type of practice known as concierge medicine, and talking about having difficulty committing and that fear of the unknown. He was never able, even over all those 10 years, to jeopardize all he had built, in favor of something better. And so Bhavna was sort of like, hey, Dr. Singh is not the type of person that's ever going to hire an outside management company. He's not, but he might do it with you. He might work with someone that he trusts as family to make this transition together. And so I researched concierge medicine, and it just so happened that this was 2 years ago. This was in 2021. It just so happened that the concierge medicine conference where you and I met was happening 2 weeks later, 15 minutes away from where we lived, right? Wow. So that's
speaking talking of coincidence.
Exactly. Exactly. Speaking of, it was not the step I expected, but it was right there in front of me. And so what else could I do but jump? So we went, me and Bhavna went to the conference. I learned the entire business over the course of that weekend. I asked a million questions. I met all sorts of people. And by the end of it, I was like, I could probably do this for you now. It's not what I thought I was going to do, but it's interesting. It's a great model. And if this is something you'd like to do with me, I would like to do it as well. And so, yeah, go for it.
One thing I'm just going to add up is not only the right steps will show up, which, the right steps that you maybe thought are completely different, but also the right people, right? You said I connected with all these different people who could give you insight. And it always works like that. If you commit and go after it, you will be amazed how things work out.
Yeah. I mean, I am a big, I'm a big, my belief, my spiritual background and my upbringing and all of that is always not my will, but thy will, not what I want, but what, God or the universe wants for me. And I should be submissive to that. But at the same time, it does seem like, sometimes the energy you put out in the world is the energy you receive back as well. 100%. And if you fundamentally are genuine and honest and present yourself authentically, then you usually find people that are, presenting in the same way. And usually you like each other, without trying too hard, because you're both sort of speaking the same intuitive language.
Look at how we connected, how randomly we connected.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, it also wasn't, it was like you took the opportunity to speak at a conference that you were hoping you might meet people at and help people at. And then I was impressed by your conversation, so I went up and talked to you. Those were the two intentional decisions both of us made to create the connection. But the rest was just you being authentic and me being authentic and finding that we had a lot in common that we could work together on. So
absolutely. So I know I get to see you weekly, and I get to see the excitement of you building the practice and what's going on and sharing the excitement. And I do have to say, I mean, we don't know each other for that long, but it was one day, I don't even know what you guys were doing different in the practice, but you came in so fired up. Like, Isaac, I was like, you gotta come on the podcast, because it's inspiring and contagious to talk to people who are passionate about who do what they do.
Yeah, I am. I mean, so you asked before, like, what is it like to be in a lifestyle that I'm passionate about? I mean, the work, it's a totally different ball game, because I could sit at a brief for 10 hours and gruelingly sort of beat my way through writing it, and it would be good at the end, but there would be no joy to that experience, right? But now, last night I stayed up till 3 a.m. last night working on the website because I was excited to do it, right? It was fun. I was enjoying myself. And I wake up excited to talk to patients. And I really believe in what we're doing. And that means that, yes, you have bad days and you have good days. And yes, some things are harder than others, but it does not work the way that law practice was work. It's not fun the way Pilates is fun, but it's not work the way law practice was work. It's because I can really put my heart into it. I can really, just like, and the fundamental thing, you know, the fundamental ideal or vision behind this type of practice, this concierge medicine approach, is Dr. Singh saying, I have practiced for 36 years and I have done my very best to help patients, but the system that I work within fundamentally does not allow me to provide what I consider true healthcare to patients. There are too many other interests, there's too many limiting factors, and so I am doing this for the benefit of my patients. Like it's not a good fit for everyone, but I am doing it for the benefit of my patients. And
I think, sorry to interrupt you, I think those goes back exactly to what feels right and aligned with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's at the point where he's like, I love my patients, but the model that I have right now doesn't align with me anymore because I can't serve, like you mentioned earlier, to the best of my ability. So what do I need to do? Even though it might be uncomfortable, right? Because it's transitioning and who is going to stay and who is going to go. But
exactly
that I know I can do my best in this case, as a physician. It's the exact thing as whether it's a Pilates teacher or a lawyer or whatever your job is.
Yeah, change is always painful, right? It never goes smoothly, and there will always be some unhappy people, and like, what can you do? But
I will tell you something. I have rephrased that, and like I say, change is fun. It's out of the comfort zone, but I don't say painful anymore.
I guess it's hard enough for people without making it worse. Yeah, you're right. That's true. It is also a lot of fun, but I mean, like, we truly believe that at the end of this, every patient of Dr. Singh who understands what he's doing is going to thank him for doing it. But that doesn't mean there's not a lot of questions right now, and concern and fears, and people who are like, I'm not going to see him anymore because it's not a good fit. And we understand that, of course, but we don't regret for a second the choice. But the point I was making was that, if Dr. Singh came to me and said, I'm doing this to make more money, I would not be interested, right? That's not right. But because I really believe that his primary focus is on the benefit of his patients, then I feel like I'm doing something that's valuable. It turns out that I appear to be an implementer. Like, I don't have good ideas myself. I don't wake up in the morning with like business ideas popping out of my head. I leave that to other people. But if I find ideas that are good and I believe in what they're doing, I love figuring out how to make them happen. Right. That seems to be my role, which is why my wife and I fit together, because she has the ideas and then she gives them to me. Yes, hopefully. We'll see. We'll see.
That's great compliment. And to the point that you made is, when things feel right and when things are heart driven, I really believe that. I'm sure you have heard the saying, do something with love and the money will follow.
Yeah.
I really believe that, because the energy that you send with the intention that you send. I was talking about to a client today, and she's not doing so good showing up for her sessions. And I said, listen, I can take your money and you're not going to benefit from that, but that does not feel good for me. Like, I want you to be here so that you can get stronger and feel better. And that's my intent. Like, I really care. I can bill you every month and you not show up, but that doesn't feel good to me, right?
Totally.
And I think it's kind of the transition. Like, you have to stand behind what you believe in and what feels aligned and send that right energy out. And whether it's a physician or Pilates or, helping implement, rolling out a new business, the intent has to align with the way you are.
You can't fake passion. You can't fake the heart. Everything else maybe you can fake, but if you're paying attention, you can always tell. And it changes things for your patients or for your customers, for your clients. Yeah, I agree completely, totally.
All right, so Isaac, I can't let you go without you telling me what your definition of rebellious is.
Sure. It's a good question. I had to think about that one, because I know that's a useful term in your word, but I can count the number of times I use that word in my life. So I ended up thinking that My definition of rebellious is an unyielding commitment to truth, no matter what. And what I mean by that is it can be personal truth or truth about the universe or spiritual truth. But, the question is, what are you rebelling against, right? Like rebelling is breaking away from something. So what is it that you're breaking away from? And it seems to me like if you're breaking away from things that are true, then that's not a good rebellion. You should be breaking away from things that are untrue towards things that are true, which I don't know if that makes any sense, but like, so to me, it's like rebellion against societal expectations, social norms, social pressures, incorrect expectations or belief systems or dogmas or your own personal insecurities that you rebel from to move closer towards what is true and real and authentic and correct for you personally, for the universe as a whole, for, no matter what. Like I love Star Trek, and right, as Picard always says, like the first thing you should always be committed to is truth, whether it's personal truth or intellectual truth, spiritual truth. It doesn't matter. That we should be moving towards. We shouldn't be rebelling from that. But the things that are in our way from that, you must rebel against, no matter how hard it is.
Lovely. You could definitely hear that background in law. That's
Can you?
the choice of words. Absolutely. We can tell you have read a lot of books, Isaac. I love it.
You know what? I don't know if you've been keeping up with the new AI, artificial intelligence stuff that's been going on right now, but it's crazy. And one of the things I'm doing these days is anytime I write like an email or some copy or something for our business, I run it through the AI first, and I say, make this more human sounding, because I still write like a lawyer. And so, everyone always tells me like you sound like a robot, you sound like you hate everything and are not enjoying yourself. So I need a computer to sound more human. How about that?
Well, I do have to say, I totally enjoyed the definition and your choice of words. You could just tell that they're very elevated. I personally like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Isaac, favorite quote or words of wisdom for our listeners to end with?
Sure. My spiritual teacher and the founder of the spiritual organization I follow says, change yourself by knowing yourself. And I believe that completely. That if fighting on, it's just like Pilates, fighting on the surface to force yourself to do things when you do not understand what subconscious or underlying reasons may be working against you, instead of relaxing in meditation and so on to go deeply and understand why you are the way you are, is not going to work for long. Permanent change comes from true knowledge of the self. I do believe that. So
I so resonate with that, and it's so interesting. I think it's fascinating how I have these podcast episodes and they resonate so close to stuff that's happening in my life. Sometimes it's almost spooky, right? But with my husband, we have a running joke, and he says, you keep discovering yourself, right? And he makes fun of some of the wisdom that I share. But I'm like, you might want to try that out, because it's pretty fascinating once you start digging inside and looking in that mirror to see what's out there.
Sure. Totally. Yeah. So, and just to give credit where it's due, that quote is by Maitreya. His name is Maitreya of the Mission of Maitreya. So that everyone knows that was not me saying that was him saying that. So that's it.
So Isaac, where can people find you on social media, website?
Sure. I'm personally on LinkedIn. You can find me by my name on LinkedIn. All of my professional information is there, and the current ventures that we're working on. It's this practice is what I'm on right now, and also we have a supplement line. All the information is there. And as for the practice itself, we are Alpha Wellness, and we'd love for you to learn more about the practice. Our website is alphawellnessatl.com. That's ALPHA wellnessatl.com. Has lots of great information on there, and you can contact me through there. If there's anything I can do or help you with, or if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Isaac, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so glad that we connected. I consider you and your family part of my tribe, and I love growing together and learning from each other. And thanks for your support. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. I wish you guys continued success, and we'll definitely be in touch. And for those of you tuning in, we do thank you for listening in. Definitely let us know if there are any questions. And of course, not to forget to make it a rebellious day. Yes, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Can't get enough of those rebellious conversations? Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share with your friends.